Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. On the show this evening, after governors, the new NDA government now goes after other UPA appointees and tells the heads of various bodies like the National Commission for Women and the National Disaster Management Authority to resign. Now, have these posts been completely politicised already? Is this vendetta by the NDA or is this good for governance? And as curbs are imposed on Greenpeace's foreign funding, are concerns about the NGO alarmist or legitimate? That's a little later, but first tonight, after governors, the centre is now going after other appointees of the UPA, asking the head of the NCW, the National Disaster Management Authority and the ICCR to step down. Now, there's no doubt that many of those who've been appointed to these bodies have been Congress members, but the question is whether these political appointees will be replaced by non-political ones.
The Modi government in complete overhaul mode. After first trying to nudge out governors appointed by the UPA continuing in office, the government today turned its attention to several central commissions and bodies headed by political appointees of the UPA.
The Honourable Prime Minister being the chairman of the NDMA, I thought it would be appropriate to let him have the freedom to reconstitute this body.
Other than Shashidhar Reddy himself, sources say that those who got calls include Mamta Sharma, the chairperson of the National Commission for Women, Karan Singh, the head of Indian Council for Cultural Relations, and Kushal Singh, chief of the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights. However, the NCW says it has received no communication so far. There is also speculation that the chief of the Scheduled Caste Commission may have been asked to go, but he has denied it.
सोच समझ के राष्ट्रपति जी ने नियुक्त किया है, जो देता है वही उसको वापस ले सकता है. कोई दबाव डालता है कि इस्तीफा दे दीजिए, तो ये थर्ड डिग्री में है.
Appointments to these bodies is largely seen as loyalty rewards of political service, and while the latest purge seems to be pitting the NDA against the opposition, it remains to be seen if the government too will continue with the same convention. In New Delhi, Siddharth Pandey for NDTV.
Well, the question is that even if those who were appointed earlier were political appointees, is the NDA government justified in going after those who were appointed by the UPA? Is that going to improve governance or is this vendetta, as the Congress party alleges? Sanjay Jha of the Congress joins us tonight. Nalin Kohli, spokesperson of the BJP, senior lawyer and constitutional expert Raju Ramachandran, and Mohini Giri, former chairperson of the National Commission for Women. Let me ask Mohini Giri first. Ma'am, you know, many of those who've been appointed to bodies like the NCW have actually been active members of political parties like the Congress. For instance, Mamta Sharma, who's the current chairperson of the NCW, she just has a couple of months left, but she's been an active member of the Congress party as well. Now, it's very clear that the heads of many of these commissions and bodies, you know, their posts already were highly politicized. In that sense, then, isn't the NDA right in starting on a clean slate?
It's not a question of NDA being right or the Congress being not right. The question is that there are certain set rules about it, and the rule clearly says that these are statutory bodies and you cannot remove. Of course, we had objected to the very fact of the kind of appointments that they do. At the time of appointment, the appointment has to be done by the 2 members of the ruling party, 2 members of the opposition party, and 2 social activists. I had 4 people, 4 governments come and go during my period. I started with Mr. Narasimha Rao, then it was Mr. Gujral, then it was Mr. Devagowda, then it was Mr. Bajpayee. Let me tell you, I had very cordial relations with all of them, because when you are a chair of a certain institution, you are first of all, you are upholding the women's right and not a party right. So your own conscience should tell you whether you are doing right to the women of the country or not to the party. At that time, your loyalty should be only to women for whose cause you are standing up, or children.
Wouldn't you agree, though, that many of these institutions have become highly politicized, and the NCW again is a very prime example of that? Wouldn't you agree today that, honestly, that many of those who are on the NCW today are there because of their political affiliations?
I agree, but many of them have also been in the women's movement. However, I still say that the very appointment process is wrong. If you really improve the process of appointment with the people who are appointing them, not just the ruling party, it has to be the opposition party, it has to be also from 2 eminent people who are not with any party. So the appointment process is at fault. You must now deal with the appointment process and not with the NDA government or the Congress government, what they are doing.
Okay,
they
that's
are
an excellent point to make. That's an excellent point to make. I'll get Raja Ramachandran in on that. That what Mohini Giri says actually makes a lot of sense. And the question is then, therefore, is the NDA right to take this step? And do you think this is then an opportunity for this government to, really rework the rules, as it were?
Absolutely. But we need to be sure that that's what they have in mind. Let's face it, for the last several decades, we've had the spoils system in place. And every government has done it. Previous NDA and of course successive Congress governments. If Mrs. Mohini Giri's suggestion of a collegium, that's what it comes to, is set in place for all these major positions, then the likelihood of partisans being appointed would be less. And then there wouldn't be the necessity for asking incumbents to step down when a new government comes in place. Unfortunately, many of these institutions, including the National Commission for Women, have not covered themselves with glory. And therefore, I think the new government would be entitled to ask all these partisans to step down, but it must make its intentions very clear. If it's going to be Tweedledum being replaced by Tweedledee,
then it's pointless.
Then it's pointless.
Okay. So let me ask Sanjay Jha of the Congress first then. That Sanjay, you just heard the examples we gave, for instance, of Mamta Sharma, actively was a member of the Congress party. Mr. Shashidhar Reddy, lovely person, but his position in the NDMA, the National Disaster Management Authority, frankly, was because he's been a very key member of the Congress party. So therefore, weren't these posts already highly politicized? And is it fair for the Congress then to criticize the BJP for removing those in these positions or asking them to step down?
Nidhi, our criticism is based on two factors. One is if you look at the timing itself. I mean, this government clearly has a lot of misplaced priorities. When you've got a serious hostage crisis in Iraq, there are challenges in terms of multiple domestic issues that we keep talking about it day in and day out. I would have expected that the first thing that the Prime Minister should have done was to ask for the resignation of the minister from Rajasthan who's accused of rape. I think that, to my mind, was a more pertinent issue. When rape is escalated all over the country, it's a very disturbing signal to have somebody in your cabinet who's been accused of it, and you're looking at, you're protecting that. So I think that's a side issue, but it's very relevant to this discussion. Also, if you look at Mamta Sharma's case, I mean, her term comes to an end within a month or a month and a half, to the best of my knowledge. So I think, when you say vindictive, that's what really becomes relevant. It's very germane that if you are making these sweeping changes, and we will agree that they have the prerogative to make these extraordinary shifts as they will. The truth is, let me give you one simple example. By asking all the members of the National Disaster Management Authority to resign, is this government assuming that the unpredictable natural disaster can't occur when you may have no NDMA at all? So, these are serious issues of administration and governance. Do you have a backup? Who do you have in mind? Because even if this NDMA, according to the Prime Minister, doesn't deserve to be there, or he has a free right to reconstitute them, the truth is there is some experience and expertise that you might want to continue until you're able to replace them, not at one stroke, but maybe in incremental changes till you have the complete team that you have. So there are critical issues here, and I think, the politicization, I'll agree with you, needs to be brought to an end. And if this government believes that the previous government made them as political appointees, this is an opportunity for them to try and bring in a breath of fresh air. I do agree with Mohini completely.
My question
that
is,
these need to be dispassionate and neutral positions.
It is very unfortunate what is unfolding
that we should
in
look
Iraq
at the
right
position
now.
And not the individual.
This country is always in the midst of multiple crises. Let's face it, but governance has to go on. There is a new government in place. It has to go on with the process of governance. So why question the timing, Sanjay?
No, I think
I think maybe the point I'm making is if you look at if you look at the fact that today, whether it's a Council of Cultural Relations or you're talking about the SC/ST panel head, or for example the governors. Why are we ignoring the governors issue? There are a number of people who are getting calls from the Home Secretary saying please relinquish your position. Now, this whole obsession with getting exactly what you want. Don't forget that the Prime Minister actually had an ordinance to get somebody that he wanted. Now these are all freedoms that they are free to exercise. Nobody is denying that to them. But the complete radical hurry that one can see seems to be to put your own people there at the cost of maybe the work that may have already been done. To that extent, it definitely looks very political.
You see it as
and there is no guarantee that who will they be substituted by.
We'll ask them about that, but I think if you see them being in a hurry, many would say that they're being efficient in getting on with the job. But Nalin Kohli, there are many issues that have been addressed here.
I remember quite a few of them, so let me just address them.
Ahead.
I'll keep it straight away partisan, since Sanjay Jha has raised so many partisan issues, so no point in answering them in a non-partisan manner. First of all is that one of his statements is important. We've got down to work, so let us do our work. Second is about when he says we don't have the right to question. I think he's right about that. Third, he had advice for the Prime Minister. Perhaps he should reserve that for his party president for now. Let us get down with our job, since now we are there and the people of India will be there to judge us after a 5-year term, and we take full responsibility for what we do. Next, he raised about it being an opportunity. I would like to remind him that in the period when Mr. Vajpayee was Prime Minister of India, there was an opportunity when he continued with almost all the governors who had been appointed previously, and in fact went out of his way to even give a new term to Mr. M.M. Jacob, who was a previously Congress Home Minister. We of course saw in 2004, so the 2004 story also has to be seen in light of that. Now, these can all be debated. There can be a new set of rules. That's a good suggestion, Ms. Giri is saying. Mr. Ramachandran has said that. Now, these could be points of discussion, and certainly it could evolve down the line. But as far as the position now is, if decisions are there, these are offices of eminence. So let's expect some eminence also in the offices in terms of the behavior. We've also seen a governor here who's on national television day to day, reminding us of getting something in writing, when the Constitution of India doesn't really have a clause that says you have to send something in writing. Next, Mr. Jha was...
But there's a point he raised, for instance...
Let me also get done. No, he spoke about the interim. There were so many points. Just 2 points. Just a point. He said about interim.
Mamta Sharma has 2 months left. Why ask her to step down?
Well, I think because... Yes, actually that was the point I was going to address. Is that if Mr. Jha would like to ask what's the tearing hurry, if they had left the country and the economy in a slightly better position, maybe we would have had the time to get down to issues one by one. Now we don't have the time. We have 60 months to repair a lot of damage that's there. And if Mr. Jha doesn't believe it with his smile, he only has to refer to the election results. The people of India obviously didn't think the country was being run.
Give me an opportunity to respond to Nalin.
I just
responded to you.
I'll make it very short.
Yes.
I'll make it very short. I think it's about time, and I request Nalin, as a very responsible BJP spokesperson, you have been around for almost close to a month now. It's about time you stopped harping back each and every time, and I've seen you do that very often on debates with me and with others. You keep talking about what you inherited. I can give you a laundry list of positives that you're inheriting as well. So you can crib about a few things here and there, but I think it's time you took a positive stance and moved on. Because I can give you a whole encyclopedic advantages that you started.
I will let you do that privately.
So I think
not right now.
I don't have the time, honestly. We've discussed it through the elections.
I think it's time to stop complaining and moving on.
No, I mean, that's exactly what I think.
I can tell you the current account deficit.
Mr. Jha, you wanted a sentence. That's a paragraph. Mr. Jha, may I have a sentence? Let's stop the paragraph. Just a sentence, Mr. Jha. We've already discussed many of those issues through and through. Let's ignore them now. We are in office. Let us do our job.
Would like to say
Judge us with our work.
Okay, Mohini Giri, yes.
See, this is what is upsetting us who have given everything for this country, that on television, in the newspapers, we fight party to party. Why don't we think of our country for once and think what is really good for our country? The Supreme Court has already given a statement. So if the ruling party or any other party is not satisfied with that, why can't we go sit in the parliament and talk about it and find out ways and means of what should be done in the future? We have to talk about the future if we are really interested in this country and the future of our women in this country.
Okay, you're saying move beyond partisanship. You're right.
Yes.
It's a very idealistic argument. It unfortunately doesn't happen. But
no, it's not idealistic. If you really, everybody claims to have love for the country and they don't love their country.
True.
Okay, Raju Ramachandran, is this also a time, you know, when one sees everything that has been debated over the last few days, whether it's about the governors and now about these positions, the one thing that struck me today was, why do we need some of these commissions and these bodies at all? I mean, frankly, we've had a debate in the past about the NCW and whether it really performs the functions that it's supposed to. There are various commissions and bodies out there. There's a cattle commission. I really don't know what exactly the cattle commission is doing that is so important for this country, but you know, is this an opportunity to relook at these various bodies as well?
No, certainly there is need, and this is an occasion to relook at certain commissions. But there are some very important commissions like the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. I think the National Commission for Women is a very, very important commission, provided it is manned or womaned by the right people and not by blatantly partisan people. But yes, it is a time to relook at the necessity for many organizations. Yes, I agree with you.
I think it's part of evolution. It's a fair point. The institutions need to evolve with time, and I think course correctives should be done, because that's the only way you'll build good traditions and institutions.
Can you sit here today and say that those who will be appointed then to these positions will be people who will not be political appointees?
That's the point.
That is the point.
Let me answer this in a different way.
No.
Let me answer this in a different way. Madam,
The appointment process has to be spelled out.
No, that is one. But no, now if that appointment process is not changed,
no, I think, you know,
will there be an assurance that the BJP government gives that these will not be political?
We are asking the wrong question.
Why?
And I'll tell you why. Because inherent in this is that politicians are scum. I mean, people are electing politicians too, and there's a wealth of experience there. Now, if you are talking of bad examples in the political class, I can count you out bad examples in every section of society. There's just no, I mean, people are good or people are bad. What you need are people who raise the bar of the institutions, not whether they belong to an institution.
So that means what? That you remove everybody who has a Congress affiliation, because those who raise the bar are only BJP ones.
So therefore, you can judge us. You can only judge us with our work. See, everything can be judged with a track record. Now, for example, and this is true about the beauty of democracy, people judge democracy in a democracy every time after 5 years. And they do give their vote, which clearly tells.
Which is a lovely way of saying that there will be political appointees.
No,
That's a nice way of saying
not necessarily. But not necessarily. But why not political appointees?
Okay, Mohini Giri and then Sanjay Jha. Yes.
Yes, during my period, we had to summon Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav and we had to summon Mr. Shukla, both of them from different parties. So if you can do that whoever is at wrong, you summon them, then it's a fine thing. I don't understand why this party should be redundant. They should formulate their rules. All the rules have been given, all the improvements that have to be done are already with the government of India, and they should now see that and implement them.
Well, ma'am, that's a separate debate on you know, like I said, we have debated in the past on this program whether panels like the NCW really, you know, contribute anything, whether, you know, the entire structure needs to change, you need to be given more teeth, and the fact that it's such a highly politicized body doesn't help, as Mr. Ramachandran says. But Sanjay Jha, you wanted to jump in, I think, on the issue of what Nalin said on political appointees.
Absolutely. I think Nalin's words were like music to my ears, to be honest. And I will agree with him. You know, when he confesses today that
we do agree sometimes, Sanjay.
Perhaps a political appointment. Of course we do. I think when he says that there could be a political appointment, what he's in principle agreeing to is if the appointments made to these various statutory bodies by the UPA were political appointees, he's got no objection to that. Then Nalin mentions it's important to have an expertise and track record. Then I'm going to suggest to him that instead of asking for a blanket carte blanche of, you know, resignations by everybody, they should evaluate the performance of the various people they've asked to resign. And if their expertise and track record is good, you should have no objection to their continuing there.
Well, let me assure one thing, Sanjay, and it's not a partisan statement. I think at the end of the day, we have to work for governance, and that's the job of a government. I mean, we all can differ whether, you know, a party did or not, but every party is going to work towards governance. And we will be judged by our track record, and I constantly say this. If we err, we will be responsible for those mistakes, but if we do well, we hope we will be rewarded for those too.